It is extension season in the National Football League, so which players on the Commanders roster could the Burgundy and Gold look to lock up for the future here heading into the 2024 campaign? My name is Jack Sperry. I am the host of the Commanders Report. Welcome into today's show, and before we get into it, make sure you guys type me down there in the comment section to get today's show started. If you are pumped for the future of Commanders football, just like I am, Dan Quinn is a head coach I believe in. I think Jaden Daniels, if he stays healthy, is going to be the next star quarterback here in Washington. You got some nice pieces, both offensively and defensively. I'm pumped up for the future here in Washington. If you're with me, type me down there in the comments section. So first off here, we're going to go with the one player that I would extend this offseason, okay? Because the rest of the players on this list, I think they need to perform a little bit, and they have to prove it within the schemes offensively and defensively to keep their spots and, lock them up long-term during the season. But the one guy that I'd lock up right now is Sam Cosmi, the guard, okay? I think he's absolutely fantastic. I thought, he had a Pro Bowl caliber season last year, and I think that he's only going to get better heading into yet another season in his young NFL career. I think that as guards go, he's one of the best in football. But the only thing now is that, after this last offseason with guards making quite a bit of money in free agency, guards no longer come cheap in the National Football League. As you can see, the highest paid guards per year in the National Football League is now over $20 million. Multiple guards getting that kind of money here. So even though guard is seen as more of a lower value position, they are starting to make some money around the league here. And it looks like if you're going to lock up Sam Cosmi to a long-term deal this offseason, that's probably the price point that you're going to have to pay because he is young. He is probably going to be a Pro Bowl caliber guard this year. And I do think that's actually worth it for a guy like Cosmi because he's literally the only guy that's trustworthy on the offensive line for the Commanders right now. Hopefully Biotish turns into one of those guys this year. Hopefully Allegretti will turn into one of those guys this year. And then, hopefully some of the tackles, kind of stick this year for the Commanders. But Cosmi is that one rock on the offensive line. You don't want him to go elsewhere because that just creates another hole on this offensive line that you have to address in the future. If I'm the Washington Commanders, I am locking up Sam Cosmi for the foreseeable future. But what say you guys? Let me know down there in the comment section. Would you give Sam Cosmi $20 million a year to stay long-term here in Washington? Type S if you would sign it, or type P if you would pass. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. And when that happens, take advantage of that time by answering today's pinned question. Now, keep in mind here, before I go over the rest of my list, the rest of the names here are going to be guys that I think could get extensions if they play well enough during the 2024 season. And I think that the first guy on my list here that I could absolutely see the Commanders come to an agreement with mid-season with is Jamin Davis, the edge rusher now, former inside linebacker with the Jack Del Rio, Ron Rivera regime. Now this Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr. regime is turning him into essentially an edge rusher, kind of like an outside linebacker type in a 3-4 system where he's going to be able to go out in coverage, but he's going to be on the line of scrimmage. He's going to be attacking pass rushers more often than not here. And I think he has a chance to be really, really freaking good. And if he is that good, and he is kind of like the leading sack getter for the Commanders this year, and he turns into kind of like the light version of Micah Parsons in this version of the Dan Quinn, Joe Witt Jr. defense, then yes, the Commanders are going to have to pony up quite a bit of dough to keep him around if he does, in fact, really light it up in terms of the stat sheet. Right now, top of market is where Nick Bosa's at, which is a ridiculous $34 million per season. Nobody even coming close to touching that right now. Josh Allen and Brian Burns are making around 28. Same thing with TJ Watt with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, maybe, it's going to be interesting. It really does depend on just how good Jamin is as to how much the Commanders would have to pay him over a new contract. But if you want to see how I see Jamin Davis fitting into this defense and why I think he could be playing in that Micah Parsons role and why I think he could be a really good player in this defense, I'm going to put the link to that video in the comments and description of today's show. Now, another extension candidate that I would love to see here in Washington for a long time is Darrick Forrest. Now, he's on the last year of his contract. You do have Quan Martin and Jeremy Chin on the roster. Percy Butler is perfectly fine as well, but you just can't have enough Darrick Forrest on your team in the National Football League because Forrest is a playmaker. He's a really good athlete. He plays with fantastic instincts, and whenever you watch Darrick Forrest on film. He's always out there making plays. He's always triggering exactly where he needs to go, which is why he was such a good player in that former, off coverage Fangio style system, which allowed him to be instinctual. But if you pay him, this regime wasn't willing to pay Cameron Curl this past offseason. Would they be willing to pay Darrick Forrest, especially if he has a good season this year? I don't know. Now, safeties make a bit less here. It's considered a low-value position. But, Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr., they love to use these 3 safety packages. So if they want to lock in their 3 safeties of the future, Darrick Forrest is somebody where, coming off that injury, if he has a really good season, I could see him potentially getting an extension this year. Then another guy that could get an extension is special teams captain Tress Way. He's on the last year of his contract. He's been here in Washington for a very long time. He's a fan favorite. But last year didn't have his best season, just 46 yards per punt, which was the lowest of his career, I believe, and it was 27th in the league. So it just wasn't all that good. In fact, over the last 2 years, Tress hasn't been fantastic. So it might be, he might be kind of running out of gas here. Hopefully not. If he plays better this year and he gets back into that top 10 conversation in terms of yards per punt, and he's looking really good, I do think the Commanders will bring him back. Will they do it via extension? I don't know, but I do think they'll probably bring him back for 2025. Then the final extension candidate here, Benjamin St-Juste. Now, the reason why I have Juice last on this list here is because I think this one's probably the least likely of the bunch, because plain and simply, BSJ needs to be like pretty much this team's number 1 cornerback, and he has to really have a breakout season in order for the Commanders to feel like they should pay him another big contract here in Washington. He's just coming off his rookie year. He's going to be a free agent next year. So it's going to be a big year for Benjamin St-Juste, because he's going to get one more opportunity to really prove that he can be a starter in this league. He's never been the fastest guy in the world, but he's got long arms. He's physical. He's pretty good in press coverage. So he's going to be playing on the outside this year mostly. It's going to be interesting to see how well he holds up this year with the Commanders. Now, who's got next? Let me know down there in the comment section. Which player will Washington give their next big payday to? I think the obvious answer, at least in my opinion, is Sam Cosmi, but let me know down there in the comment section which player is going to get that big paycheck next. That'll be it for today's show, and if you made it to the end of today's program, I want you to identify yourselves as a Commanders Report Real One by spamming Real One in all caps down there in the comments to identify yourselves. If you made it to the end of today's show, really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. I really do appreciate all of your support. Again, guys, we're going to have more Commanders content coming your way. We got Commanders Report live tomorrow, 4:30 or 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So can't wait to share that with you guys tomorrow. Make sure you can turn on your notifications to join us then. And until then, hail to the Commanders.